beautiful township of Sheffield with the backdrop of Mount Roland, here we are once again at the Sheffield Football Club as we reflect on the history of this proud football club in the northwest. We're going to meet some of the great characters of the club. From Camel Davey, the game's record holder, 526 games, to some of the amazing volunteers that this club has had, none more so than the proud Bev Bramich, a life member for nearly 50 years, inducted into the Hall of Fame at the Sheffield Football Club. We'll meet some of the great players, the characters going back from the 1950s up until today, and their current president, Shane Davies, who's been at the helm for many, many years and been involved in 5 premierships as well as a trainer. This is the Sheffield Football Club.
Sheffield come on the ground, led by Captain Diprose.
As the first people, we care for our country.
Oh! You beauty! You bloody beauty!
Ellis, Mick Wootton, Murray, Joe Skirving, 2 West Kentish farmers and both premiership heroes with the Sheffield Football Club. Mick, 62 and 64, and Murray, a teammate of Wootton's in the 64 premiership.
Well, it's that long ago, very vivid memories. I can remember flying for a mark, and of course I used to play at full back. And a little rover, Bobby Hayes, he just sort of went up in front of me, and he sort of got his boots hooked up in my shorts. And several band-aids later, I had to reappear on the ground. So that was a bad incident, but a funny one. But it was pretty rough and tough. I can remember we used to play a Wesley Vale, and they were an older side, and a lot of big fellas played. And I remember when I was only a kid, about 17, playing a centre-half forward those days, and this big fella grabbed me by the scruff of the neck. He just literally picked me up and asked me what I was doing. I said, "I'm playing footy, mate." And he obviously dumped me onto the ground and kept going. So that was a real instigating or learning curve into the footy ground. So
9 times out of 10 we did not train because we was working at home all the time, and that was our social outing of a Saturday afternoon to play football, and it was very enjoyable. The Wesley Vale side, they had half East Devonport, and there was old chaps like Max Hardacre and Empty Head Muir, and they'd pick you up anywhere and chuck you anywhere. They didn't give a hang who was it. They'd just charge at you.
Empty Head, that's one of the best nicknames I've heard. It's probably pretty obvious, but tell us where that came from.
Oh, I've got no idea where it came from. But that's where they called him Empty Head, because I don't think he had a brain. Second semi-final, Wesley Vale beat us very easy, by 70-odd points. Half-time, the Vale was in front, and Bill Byrne was our coach, and he said, "Well, don't worry, we've been closer today than we was in the second semi-final." He said, "We've still got a good chance." Within 15 minutes of the third quarter, Bill Byrne kicked two of the biggest goals I've ever seen kicked at Latrobe, on Latrobe Rec. And he sort of started Sheffield then, and we went on to win. But the Wesley Vale side, they had it all won. They never trained for the fortnight after they thrashed us at Drayton. And everybody said, oh, we haven't got to train now, we can just walk out in the ground and beat Sheffield.
I think it's just more or less to knuckle down and do your job. Make sure you're first to the ball. And I think it sort of spread right across the team from the half-back line to the full-back line, and the rest of us just went ahead and got the job done.
And
vivid memories, but it was such a long time ago.
what were the celebrations like back in 1964?
Well, they'll be similar. We all had to go home and do our jobs. I had to go home and milk. Mick would have done too. And then we came back and had a celebration, and the next morning, come back after milking again and had a few more sherbets.
Kevin Duff, well, a life member, over 300 games and a three-time Premiership player, as well as being a playing coach, a Reserves Premiership 1998, a legend of the Sheffield Football Club.
Like a lot of boys, the club was our life. Like you worked and then you wanted just to get back to the club. In that 84 period, was probably one of the best social years you'd have. All the boys stuck together, hung around here, went, well, we know Blue Room, and then went up the pub. So there was a really good, healthy lot of young players, but just needed a top up, not a big top up, just a top up of more experienced, high grade players.
Dean Martin came on board as the president from 1985 and took over at a very difficult time for the club, where their future was questioned, and led them through this difficult period right through until 1997.
It was tough. The club was ticking over all right. We had a lot of young players up here that just needed those years' experience to develop into senior players, but we had no experience, and it was at a time when Turner's Beaches and Mott & Preston's and that, they were really strong clubs, and we were getting towed up by the good clubs. 85, it was funny because I was working at Wesley Vale at the time at the old pulp mill, and a guy, Gerald McCoy, who was well known around the country footy circles, and we were looking for a coach, and I just mentioned to Gerald, you know, would you be interested? And he said, yeah, I'll coach you. Well, we ended up with a few good recruits, and it sort of started from there. I don't believe there was anyone left the club at the time. I think from memory, they all could see that we'd made a decision to try and move forward, and I think they all wanted to be part of it because, you know, we'd been down and they could see there was light at the end of the tunnel.
Everyone stuck around, and for me, it was looking forward to the success later. When Dean and Peter Freshney had to make some tough decisions, which were tough. Like I said, a lot of players, when Gerald McCoy came up here and got us from nowhere to playing Premiership final, getting beat by 5 points in the Premiership final, we were thinking, wow, we're out here, and next thing these blokes had the balls to turn around and sack Gerald. And I thought, Jesus Christ, what are you got to do? That's a pretty hard decision. But they got Kevin up here, and he brought a couple more players. We win back-to-back premierships. Their decisions up here then. Like I say, you've got to have a good team to win a premiership, but you've got to have a good team on the side or you're going nowhere. That period of not winning the game that year was probably made you appreciate so much what the club went through to get to that situation. A few players like come along and played, bang, straight into premierships, and we was pretty successful for a long time after that. And I don't think that they really knew how much. I know when the siren went in '87, it was just the best feeling of my life. It was just wow. We've gone from winning no games, and 3 years later we win a premiership.
I made a promise to Dean Martin when I was going bad, and he was trying to get the club going. He said, "You promised me you're going to stay here?" I said, "Yes," and I'm still here.
Probably first memory would have been, I suppose, one thing that's always stuck in the back of your head was Kevin Parker was coaching, and I got my first senior game, and I sat on the bench all day. It poured with rain. The Sheffield footy ground back then wasn't like it is now. It was an absolute mud hole. And sat there all day until the last 3 minutes of the game. And Kevin's gone, "Nighty, come on, you're going on." Everybody else on the ground was completely jet black with mud. I was completely lily white, looked like an absolute idiot running out on the ground with about 3 or 4 minutes to go. And it was just one thing that always stuck in my head. And it was like, "Really, Kevin? Like, you're gonna do this to me?" And he did. He made me go on the ground.
Kevin Parker, first training run he took, we was all out there. We'd done a drill. We come in. He said what we was going to do, so we all jogged back out. Whistle blew. Down, 50 push-ups. Oh, what's that for? No one turns their back and runs away from this. You got to run backwards back to where you go. So you never turn your back on play. And I thought to myself, "Oh, well, here's a rough few years coming." But after that, everyone, we mucked up a couple of times, but yeah, that was a good one.
The best thing with Kevin was he'd tell you how it was. As simple as that. He'd tell you if you were doing something wrong. And he'd, at the end of the day, he'd punish you too on the training track if you did anything wrong. Like, and I had him as a bench coach a couple of times as well, so it was just one of them things. You listen to him. Like sometimes it was good advice, and sometimes it was like, "Really, do you think we should do that?" So I don't know. He was a good bloke, simple as that. I actually lived next door to him for nearly 10 years, so we talked footy over the fence a fair bit.
As the First People, we care for our country to ensure the continuation of our culture by passing our knowledge on to the next generation. Thank you for this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners, my people, and to welcome you to this gathering of us all here today in good spirit.
Aaron McNabb, the current playing coach for the Sheffield Football Club. Sheffield through and through. Growing up in the township, he went on to play at Devonport before moving to Cairns to coach up there. He's now back at the club and in great form, kicking 114 goals last year.
Originally born and bred Sheffield boy. My dad played here. Steph, my auntie, she was, I think she was treasurer or secretary there at some point. So I've always had the strong family ties here and grew up around the club. And then went into boundary umpiring for a few years before I went to play footy elsewhere and stuff. So it was something that I always wanted to do, to come back to the club and have a go here. And it was just going to be a matter of when the time was. And once I got in here, it just felt like home again. Sort of haven't looked back since. And we've set these goals in place and just been around the place. Just feels like it's the right place for me and just feels like that connection of being home again.
Right, and same thing when you're forward. Don't want you just standing there and calling it. I want you to hit up hard. Doesn't get used.
It's probably nearly 4 years ago now. We sort of sat down and set out a plan, a bit of a 3-year plan to get the club back to a grand final contention, I guess you'd say. I think we were sitting 6th or 7th at the time and we knew we had to target a few sort of players to get there. We sort of just wanted to make finals the first year, push for a top 3 the second, and this year was our year to really strive to at least make the grand final and give yourself every chance of it. So we've definitely got a group that's up and about and feeling confident that they're good enough now to do it. Purely the last couple of years we've probably been a reasonably young side with guys that haven't played a lot of finals football, I guess, and now they're starting to get the confidence after a couple of years of being up towards the pointy end. Now things are starting to look good for this year, hopefully.
Just make sure you and Rootsy aren't setting up in the same line. Make sure you and Rootsy...
At the recent Dream Time Under the Mountain, Nabby, he got himself an assistant coach for the day, none other than the legendary Essendon coach, Kevin Sheedy.
He turned up there and next thing I know he's tapping me on the shoulder on the bench and straight away the first thing he was doing was giving the guys on the bench advice, where to go, what to do when they got out there and sort of watching the game. And same thing with me. He was picking up on little things that you'd say, like, all right, when you get the boys in the group, make sure the backs, mids, forwards all stay separated and go towards the end of the ground that they're going. So when you're talking to them, they know exactly where you are. Pretty much just things to keep the game simple and coaching simple, I guess, and all things that he said that he did all the way through his career. And he was pretty happy to pass on all that advice in that first quarter before he sort of went out and mingled with the crowd. When you're a kid and you come to the football and your parents play here, you always have that connection in some way that you want to feel like you want to play there at some point in your career. And I feel like the group, especially like now, we've got a group of guys here that either went to Sheffield school, they grew up here at some point, some family member has played here, or they're still living here. So a lot of guys have gone and played at a higher level and done their thing, but they seem to want to come back at some point. And I think just by that generation of growth and good footballers coming back through, it just keeps that cycle going for us. And the kids, they look forward to coming back and playing in their roots where other members have played. And I think that's a big thing with the group we've got now.
Here we go.
Bev, you became a life member in 1977 and this club has been a part of your life for so long. Take us back to how you first got involved with the football club. Where did that start for you?
Probably when we got married back in the 57, 8, 9, those years. And Dave Jeffrey was coaching in 1959, I think it was. And Dave used to walk the boundary. He knew his players and he didn't have a book or anything under his arm. And we had one umpire at that stage. The Blue Room, I'm not sure when that arrived, but it was an old school over the road, and somehow they got it over here, and that's where the grandstand is now. It was very ordinary. We only had a fire with a black pot on the fire with some sabzi. For somewhere we must have got an urn because we had no hot water. It was sitting up on the sink, and that's about all we had.
Fantastic. Now, yourself and your late husband, Graham, which the senior best and fairest was named after him. I mean, that must have been very humbling and a very proud moment.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And the commitment from both of you to your beloved Sheffield Football Club as well over so many years and made life members in the late 1970s. I mean, what do you love about the football club? What do you love about the town?
Oh, we've just always lived here. It's just home.
And the football club's always been a part of the town?
Yes. And what would the town be without a football club?
Bev's just an absolute legend of this place. She's been here forever and still comes down to the footy even now. And I mean, there's people that are not with us now that come through that era, and not young people either, the older ones that got out in the rain and sold raffle tickets and things like that, timekeepers. There's just been, dozens of people over the years that have made the club what it is, yeah.
The importance of volunteers and how difficult it is for a lot of sporting clubs and associations, not just sporting clubs, to attract volunteers. What did you love about all the roles that you played within the football club? What made you want to continue to do it?
Oh, I don't know, really. I mean, you just love your club and you just go and do what you've got to do.
Tell us a bit about this, the Blue Room, particularly for those around the club today who don't have the memories of it. Tell us about the significance of the Blue Room.
Well, that was the Blue Room, and the Blue Room was all painted inside, yellow, believe it.
Yellow.
Everything that could have been painted was painted, so it was looking pretty good.
The Blue Room could, yeah, there's been some fun times there in the Blue Room. I think we won, in my time, won the first Premiership in '86 in the reserves, and everyone around the club just stuck around. It wasn't just the '86 Premiership players that had a ball, it was everyone in the club.
It was special, the old Blue Room, and like you've probably heard from others that, an old weatherboard shed that we used as a club room, and we had a couple of urns with salves and a pie eater, and that was the meeting point for us all down there, players' tees and that. But after the '86 reserves Premiership, people let their hair down a bit.
The reserves won their first grand final in 1986, and we were still in the Blue Room. We moved here in 1987 into a palace.
Yeah, into a palace. Now, Bev, must be very exciting that you've got a grandson who's going to be playing at the club very soon in Jayden.
Yeah.
coming across. That must be lovely to have him coming and playing for your home club in your hometown. How special is that?
Well, it's pretty special.
And football's in it's in the blood, because obviously you've got grandson over in the SANFL playing football over there. I mean, that is probably second to the AFL in terms of standard of competition. So football runs in the family very well.
That's all we've ever known, really. Yeah. Football's been our life.
East Alverson playing a loose man. Big Franks is
here we go.
Loose man at half back, and umpire French throws it in the air.
Guska does well.
Kurt Arnold punches it away, but to no one. Robinson gets his first touch.
We're not only celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Premiership in 1973, but it's also 20 years since Sheffield won the Premiership back in 2003. And we'll hear some amazing memories from Dipper, Premiership player and captain Shane Davies, as well as their Premiership winning coach from that year, Rodney Padman.
We started the year really poorly, and then gradually, we lost by big margins. I thought, well, if we've got to get fitter, so I said, well, if we can't play football, I'm going to run them off their legs, and so we started running away from teams, and the boys, they done a lot of hard work on the track.
I think we all took it on our own back as a group to get fitter through this bloke. There's no one really, I feel, sort of stepped up. We all got here to train and we all done our run together.
And the games got closer, and then I just started winning, and then everyone wanted to play. Everyone wanted to come and watch.
Sheffield certainly had the better of the first quarter, though, kicking with that strong bees. We'll see at half-time whether they can hold this advantage, but they certainly linked the footy with Corey Robinson and Johnny Sullivan. And
that day as well, I remember we was on the ground before East Alvey, and we was ready to go when they ran on the ground. She was throw the ball up virtually for us. We was bang. We were switched on big time, and they wandered out 10 minutes after us, sort of thing, and I thought, righto boys, she's on.
They was fully focused and just concentrating the task ahead that they had. They really knew what they had to do.
Kicked it up nevertheless. Cameron in front. Coming through, Bennett scruffed him and pole vaulted ready to the ground.
And he's been given a free kick for
Dished
two
handball off. This has got him. That's ball! Umpire White Maggot! Yes! The crowd's hollers. Play on now. Robbo should take a mark. Not one. Anyway, she's up. Ball hits the deck. Not much. Oh, quick snap by. That's a goal! Holy mackerel! Tighten your bosoms. It's a goal.
Tightest group, I've been around a bit, tightest group of players that I've had anything to do with. They would have made sacrifices for one another. They were that close.
Doesn't waste any time going along. Oh, split them all over the back. Yeah, that's tackled and everything else. Look here, could be another one for the Robins. Oh, you beauty!
Oh, beauty!
You bloody beauty! That was one of the easiest grand finals you'll ever see, apart from the conditions. 10-10-70 to 1-9-15. It was Robins all day, folks.
It absolutely poured with the rain. It was the worst day I reckon I've ever played football. Well, I wouldn't say the worst, but one off, yeah. But no, mainly just the mates you made, the way people looked after you. The club was always good to me, so it was as simple as that.
It wasn't 22 players either at the end of the day. When come grand final day, it wasn't 22 players that in that group. The whole community got behind us, it was every business up the street.
Number 14,
Shane Davies, the captain.
Great game today by Shane.
Oh, definitely a great game.
In everything.
Looks like, yep.
Looks like Shaney's got to say a few words here.
The coach of the Sheffield Football Club, Rodney Padman.
Yeah, Rodney Padman with that horrible injury through the ear. They didn't stop him from his coaching though, and he's up for his first year, and look at the result. It's good to have discipline back in the club.
It is.
Look at Marta. Look at Marta at the back there swinging.
Actually, I was at RSL one night and the trainer that was just filling in, he said, "Oh, what are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Oh, not much." So he said, "Can you come down and help me out tomorrow?" I said, "Oh, yeah, can do." And yeah, he left the next week and I stayed. And still there 20 years later, pretty much. When I came along, hot towels were just sort of on their way out, and there was an old fella, there was a trainer here named Trevor Bissett that had been here not long before. And there was one night there where he was a penetrating cotton wool man with the hot towels, and he was treating, I think it was Gary Rouse with a corky. And yeah, old Bizzy loved to have a smoke at the same time, and he just sort of give a bit of a flick of the ash, and away went the penetrine, and Rousey ended up missing extra weeks instead of the one. In '94, like that was massive. It was. We were in the change rooms because all the finals used to be played at Sprayton, and we were still in the change rooms at 8:30, in away change rooms at 8:30 at night. We didn't come out because people all the women and families rolled in, and the beer just kept on coming in there. So yeah, it was 9 o'clock before we even got back to Sheffield to start our celebrations up here. So that was pretty memorable. Training and sort of, I suppose, general attitude has changed around as the newer generations come on. It's yeah, like people get flogged on a Thursday night, Tuesday night they may not come back. So it's sort of, yeah, it's a little bit different. One of the best things, I suppose, over the years that I've been doing the training, you get to know all those younger kids coming through in the town that you probably never would have known because you don't hang around in the same circles, but as a trainer, as the football club, you're one big family, so you get to know people, and yeah, no, it's been great over the years. Like to come up here and have a quiet beer sort of thing, and with no responsibilities, but yeah, I suppose I'd just like to be remembered as someone that gave his all when I started the job. I'd do it properly if I'm going to do it.
You know, we actually got married here with my wife, and yeah, it was just turned out to be an engagement party after a game. We was playing Sprayton down at Sprayton, and my wife, she didn't want me to play that game. She was worried I was going to get injured or something like that, and I thought, no, because it was a surprise. It was an engagement party, so if I didn't play, it was, you know, obviously something was up. So yeah, we just come here, had a party. Halfway through the night, Rachel, she just disappeared. Everyone was like, "Where's Rachel? Where's Rachel?" We just told everyone that she was going to get some more alcohol for the bar because she was the secretary at the time, and yeah, she came back in a wedding dress, and yeah, it was a good night. Everyone was dressed up in footy gear, and yeah, and we got married. It was great.
I
I think it's just, it comes from the top, the people who are in charge, the presidents and secretary, and always had a very good women's committee. And yeah, just somewhere for the young kids to come and play footy. And we were able to just keep it going.
Oh, it's very, very, very important, the football club here to Sheffield, because it keeps the young fellas that going, and now they've got lights, they can train, a lot better training for them after they knock off work, and that is very, very important. And all the time I've been with Sheffield, they've always had good committees. That's one of the best things about Sheffield. A good committee, if it's a ladies' committee, men's committee, they all get in and work together.
What I found is you made a lot of mates, you know, off the ground, on the ground. Just the way I played the game, everybody respected you.
And once you get into the club, it's just such a good club to be around that a lot of players, once they're here, they don't want to leave. Because that's one thing we always pride on ourselves, is Sheffield being the toughest side out there, and we want to be physical and show our strength around the footy. And that's sort of filtered in from generations before. Like, Sheffield's always been the tough side, and that's something, one part of the coaching that we wanted to take and continue to make sure we were reflecting of that.
As the only AFL club left in the Kentish municipality, like, it's good to keep this going, and so far so good. Like, it's, you know, then there's some young fellas about, like, over the years, you've just, when you've tried to recruit, you have so many people say, oh, it's too far to come, too far to train, travel in the dark and whatever. But this group at the moment are really good as far as, yeah, coming to training and, yeah, taking on responsibility. So it's been really good, and hopefully they can all stick in there and win a couple of premierships this year.
I had as much fun here, and you've got to have fun to play. I had as much fun here as I ever did in my life as far as sport's concerned, because we were all one. We treated each other as friends, and that's how we existed, like we did. I know the players now that played in them games, even back to the '73, they're still friends. And you know, you go out of your way and that sort of thing to see them, and they're the same. And it's what's been built, a culture.